So what Jen just demonstrated for you all is actually the finished product. That is the final stage to being able to do the muscle up. But we don't start there. There's some homework that needs to be done prior to before we get to that point. So what we're going to do now is teach and introduce the progression to develop the capacity and understand how to navigate our way up to the full ring muscle up on the high rings by doing stuff here first on the low ring. So the first step in the progression is going to be what we call ring support. So I need my athlete to show me that they have the stability and control to support themselves in the rings and not get into that movement that I demonstrated earlier. So what's going to happen is Jen's going to step into the ring, and she's going to extend her arms, and she's going to press into the ring so that her shoulders are active in supporting her body, her arms are in at her side, and she's able to stabilize there without them moving. Go ahead and hop down. That's the precedence, all right? If I was in an environment where it was safe and okay, I could provide some support for her just to make sure that she's able to do that. I'm not just gonna take her word for it. She's like, yeah, I can do this, I've been in this before. I don't trust her. I can step off to the side to make sure I'm not impeding her space, but provide some stability to the rings. And then once she's shown control, I can make my way out of there. But either way, I need to make sure the athlete has the capacity to stabilize themselves in the rings before we move on, okay? Once the athlete has demonstrated that they have control, the next step is gonna be a ring dip, where we're gonna work on passing through the bottom portion of the transition. So from that ring support, she will send the chest forward, elbows would go back, and then she's gonna get to a position at the bottom here where her shoulder is below the elbow, or the bicep here is touching the ring. And then she'll press back up into full extension, back to ring support, and then relax. All right, so we need to make sure we're establishing full range of motion there as we progress through this movement, because that's gonna be required to make that transition up in the high rings as we get to that stage of the movement. All right. Next is gonna be something relatively new for you all, and it's gonna be just the setup and the grip on this thing. So what we're introducing here is what we call a false grip. And there's a couple of different reasons that we like this grip, but for starters, just showing you how to establish that is gonna be key. So we have this kind of nook on the wrist, right? When we flex the wrist this way, there's that little crease right below the base of the palm. She's going to put that right on top of the ring. From there, she's going to wrap her thumbs and fingers on opposite sides. And then now she's in what we call a false grip. She's gonna knuckle bump herself there. Great job today, Jen, right? And that's gonna help her establish that position. Now the benefit of this grip is twofold. When she lays back, we'll talk about this position later on, it's gonna come into the next step, but Jen's gonna demonstrate by laying back below the rings. And when she goes down, she's gonna release the false grip on one side, and what you'll see is that there's a longer range of motion between her shoulder and the ring on the non-false grip side than there is on the false grip side. Then as she tries to transition through the rings, you'll see that she's able to smoothly get into the bottom of her dip on the side with the false grip, and then the side without is kind of stuck in like a chicken wing position where she has to kind of re-grip or adjust herself to get into a position of support above the ring. So that grip brings a lot of benefit to us in terms of being able to pull and push from that position, and then also just adjusting the range of motion that we're going through. Cool? So once the athlete has an established false grip, we need to make sure that that stays intact as we move into the next step, which is gonna be a kneeling muscle up. So we're gonna be able to use the legs and provide assistance to teach the positions of the muscle up before we get into a full hanging position where we're supporting the entirety of our body weight as we go through that movement. Now, to set up for that, I need to make sure that my athletes position themselves below the rings or the rig, wherever the rings are hanging. From there, she's gonna establish that false grip. So she put her wrist through, she wrapped the fingers opposite sides, she gave a knuckle bump, and then she's gonna hold that false grip intact as she lays back. She's gonna do an ugly squat that we taught you guys not to do by pushing the knees forward, coming into her toes. She's now below the rings, and what she's going to do is she's going to use her legs. She's gonna extend the legs to allow her to pull to the rings, still in contact below the nipple line. She's gonna trace the rings around her chest, around her bra line to her armpit to finish in the bottom of the dip, and then she can jump or press herself up to a position of support above the rings, all right? So there's a lot happening here. I want to boil that down by saying the most important aspect of this step is that the athlete hits all the steps along the way. We want to make sure that they aren't rushing and having the rings separate too soon. We want to make sure that they don't lose that false grip. And we want to make sure that the rings are never too far away from the body. So if we go through that again one more time, it may be easy for you as athletes or even as a coach to number the positions just to help your athletes out. Position 1, position 2, position 3, position 4. We don't want to go 1 to 4. That's not a thing. That's not how these muscle up works, right? So we got to make sure the athletes are hitting all the spots. So we can, just like every other movement, we can break it down and make sure the athlete understands where they need to be at each pace. As the athlete shows comfortability and proficiency here, we can increase the difficulty of this to engage the upper body more by doing one of two things. We can elevate the height of the rings, which deepens or lengthens that pull. We can also have the athlete progress their feet forward and get more of the upper body involved. So we started out with that ugly squat with the knees forward. Now Jen has her feet out in front of her, and again, that's going to lengthen that pull, and it's going to require more demand in the upper body for her to hit positions 2 and 3 from her starting point. Does that make sense to you guys? Once I've seen an athlete show comfortability here, and I'm confident in their ability to do that upper body pull with less assistance from the legs, then that'd be an opportunity to progress to the high ring and make an attempt there to apply what we've developed down here on the low ring to the full movement. If at any point an athlete is unsuccessful in the muscle up in the high ring, I'm going to identify the fault based on how they perform there. I'm going to bring them back to the low ring and to continue to practice that stage of the progression until I see improvement there, to then try and attempt that on the high ring, having now shown improvement in that specific area. Any questions on that progression?